Money could buy absolute power in Chicago's criminal underworld, but Dallas Watson was about to learn the hard way that it couldn't buy Penelope Hayes. When the ruthless syndicate boss tried to use a blank check to claim the city's most fiercely talented plus-sized chef, she served him a cold dish of reality he never saw coming. Heat radiated from the roaring industrial stoves of Salt and Soul, wrapping Penelope in a suffocating yet comforting embrace. Though it was only a Tuesday, her West Loop culinary sanctuary was operating at maximum capacity. Standing at the pass, Penelope was a formidable force of nature. Weighing well over 250 pounds, she carried her soft, heavy physique with unapologetic command. Her apron was dusted with flour, her thick thighs chafed beneath heavy cotton trousers, and her cheeks flushed crimson from the oppressive heat. She was exhausted, unapologetically fat, and an absolute genius with flavor. Table 4 needs the braised, short rib, Tommy. Penelope barked her voice, cutting through the hiss of searing meat. And if you over-reduce that wine sauce again, I will personally throw you in the dumpster. Tommy nodded frantically as Penelope wiped a bead of sweat from her forehead. She had built this restaurant from scratch, fighting a high-end culinary industry that preferred sleek, marketable rock stars. Investors had laughed, insisting a fat woman cooking heavy comfort food wouldn't sell. They were wrong. Salt and Soul was booked 6 months out, a pure testament to her willpower. Suddenly, the rhythmic chaos of the kitchen shattered as the heavy oak doors of the main dining room swung open. An unnatural silence swept through the establishment. Frowning, Penelope wiped her hands and peered through the kitchen door's circular window. 4 men in immaculate charcoal suits stood at the entrance, radiating a heavy, predatory stillness. At the center of the formation stood Dallas Watson. A ghost in legal records, but a god on the streets, Dallas officially owned half the shipping docks in Illinois. Unofficially, he was the terrifying head of the Watson family. He possessed sharp, aristocratic features and dark eyes, completely devoid of warmth. "Clear the room," Dallas murmured. He didn't need to shout. His men moved swiftly, dropping stacks of $100 bills onto the tables, quietly but forcefully, urging the bewildered diners to leave. "Hey!" Penelope shoved the kitchen doors open, her large frame filling the threshold. "What the hell do you think you're doing? You can't just kick my customers out." Dallas slowly turned. His cold, calculating gaze swept over her, thoroughly taking in her messy bun, her flour-stained apron, her double chin, and her wide, imposing stance. There was no disgust in his eyes, only curiosity. He was accustomed to women who starved themselves, women who shrank in his intimidating presence. Penelope did none of those things. She stood her ground, an immovable object meeting an unstoppable force. "You must be Penelope Hayes," Dallas said, his voice a low, smooth baritone that sent an involuntary shiver down her spine. "I've heard extensive rumors about your talent." "I don't care who you are," Penelope snapped, crossing her thick arms over her chest. "You are ruining my dinner service. Out!" Dallas chuckled a dry sound, lacking any real humor. He stepped forward, pulling out a chair at the best table in the center of the now empty room. He sat down, crossing one leg over the other. "I am Dallas Watson," he stated simply, expecting the name to strike terror into her heart. "Congratulations," Penelope shot back without missing a beat. "Do you want a medal, or do you want to pay for the meals you just ruined?" A flicker of genuine surprise crossed Dallas's stoic face. One of his guards stepped forward, his jaw tight, but Dallas raised a single finger, halting the man in his tracks. "I want to eat," Dallas commanded softly. "Serve me your best. If the rumors are true, I'll make you a very wealthy woman tonight." Penelope stared at him, her chest heaving with indignation. A smart woman would have called the police. A cautious woman would have locked herself in the kitchen, but Penelope's pride was her greatest weakness. She wanted to wipe that smug, entitled look off his face the only way she knew how. "Fine," she hissed. "Sit there. Don't touch anything." For the next 2 hours, Penelope waged war on a plate. She sent out course after course. Pan-seared scallops, swimming in a brown butter and sage emulsion. A rich, dark truffle risotto that coated the spoon like velvet. A dry-aged ribeye cooked to a perfect medium rare, resting over a bed of whipped parsnip puree. She poured every ounce of her frustration, her passion, and her skill into the food. Dallas ate in silence. He didn't look at his phone. He didn't speak to his guards. He gave the food his absolute, undivided attention. When he finally finished the dessert, a decadent, dark chocolate lava cake with a sharp raspberry coulis, he wiped his mouth with a linen napkin and gestured for her to approach. Penelope walked out of the kitchen, her feet aching her heavy body, tired but her spirit defiant. "Well," she demanded, standing over his table. Dallas reached into the breast pocket of his bespoke suit and withdrew a sleek silver fountain pen and a checkbook. He hastily scribbled on it, tore it out, and slid it across the white tablecloth. "That is for tonight," Dallas said. The check was for $50,000. "And starting tomorrow, you work for me. I am buying this building, closing this restaurant, and you will become my private chef. You will cook exclusively for me and my associates at my estate." Penelope looked at the check. It was more money than she made in 3 months. She looked back up at Dallas's handsome, arrogant face. He was looking at her as if she were a prized racehorse he had just successfully purchased at auction. Slowly, deliberately, Penelope picked up the check. She didn't tear it. She simply dropped it into the half-empty glass of red wine sitting on his table. The thick paper instantly soaked up the dark liquid, turning into ruined pulp. "I am a chef, Mr. Watson," Penelope said, her voice dropping to a dangerous, steady calm. "I feed people who love food. I am not a commodity for you to acquire. You can't afford me. Now get out of my restaurant." Dallas stared at the ruined check, then up at Penelope. For the first time in a decade, Dallas Watson had been denied. The corner of his mouth twitched upward in a shadow of a smile. "We shall see about that, Miss Hayes," he whispered. 4 days had passed since the incident. Penelope had almost convinced herself that Dallas Watson had simply moved on to easier targets. She was hopelessly naive. Men like Dallas did not walk away from a challenge. They suffocated it until it surrendered. The attack on her livelihood was silent and surgical. It started with her suppliers. Penelope relied on a delicate network of local artisans to maintain the quality of her menu. On Thursday morning, her butcher, Arthur Pendleton, called her in tears. "I'm sorry, Pen," the old man stammered over the phone. "I can't sell to you anymore. Someone bought out my entire inventory for the next 6 months. They paid double the market rate in cash. And they told me if I sneak even a single cut of beef to Salt and Soul, they'll burn my shop to the ground." By Friday, her organic vegetable supplier cancelled. By Saturday, her specialty seafood distributor mysteriously lost her account. Penelope spent the weekend scrambling, driving her beat-up Honda Civic to generic supermarkets just to keep the restaurant open, but the quality of her dishes was suffering, and she knew it. The stress was eating her alive. Then came Monday. Penelope arrived at her cramped second-floor apartment in Logan Square to find 2 massive delivery trucks blocking the street. A crew of workers was currently hoisting a crate through her large bay window. "Stop, what are you doing?" she yelled, sprinting up the stairs, her heavy chest heaving with exertion. Inside her tiny living room sat a brand-new, custom-built, matte black Le Cornu cooking range. It was a masterpiece of French engineering, easily worth $60,000. Resting on top of the pristine burners was a small black velvet box and a heavy cardstock envelope. Penelope ripped the envelope open. The handwriting was sharp and aggressive. A chef of your caliber deserves the proper tools. Consider this an appetizer. My offer stands. The main course awaits at the Aura Club tonight at 9 p.m. Dr. Penelope's hands shook with a mixture of profound rage and a terrifying sense of helplessness. He was systematically destroying her life just to rebuild it in a cage of his own design. He looked at her fat body, her struggling business, and assumed she was desperate for a savior. He thought he could break her spirit by removing her independence, then buy her compliance with shiny things. She opened the velvet box. Inside rested a diamond pendant, so large it caught the afternoon sun and painted rainbows on her cheap apartment walls. "He thinks I'm a joke," Penelope whispered to herself, tears of hot anger pricking the corners of her eyes. "He thinks I'm a pathetic, desperate woman." She snapped the box shut. She didn't change out of her flour-dusted jeans and her oversized black sweater. She grabbed the velvet box, shoved it into her purse, and marched back out the door. The Aura Club was a notorious front for the Watson Syndicate, an ultra-exclusive casino and lounge operating behind the facade of a private gentleman's club downtown. Penelope marched past the velvet ropes, ignoring the protests of the imposing bouncers. Her sheer momentum and furious expression made them hesitate just long enough for her to push through the heavy gold doors. Inside the club was a symphony of dark mahogany cigar smoke and clinking crystal. High rollers sat at velvet-draped tables. Penelope, large, disheveled, and radiating fury, stuck out like a sore thumb among the sleek, surgically enhanced women draped over the wealthy patrons. Before she could locate Dallas, a man stepped directly into her path. He was younger than Dallas, with slicked-back dark hair and a razor-sharp smile that didn't reach his cold, calculating eyes. He wore a maroon suit that screamed expensive confidence. "Well, well," the man purred, looking her up and down with blatant amusement. "You must be the famous culinary holdout. Penelope, isn't it?" "Move out of my way," Penelope growled, trying to step around him. The man smoothly sidestepped, blocking her again. "I'm Landon Brooks, Dallas's associate." Landon leaned in close, the scent of expensive cologne and danger washing over her. "I have to admit, when Dallas said he was obsessing over a chef, I pictured someone a little more conventionally delicate. But you're robust. You have fire. I see why he's losing his mind." "I am not here to chat with the henchman," Penelope snapped, clutching her purse. "Where is he?" Landon's eyes flashed with a momentary darkness at the word henchman, but his smile remained fixed. "He's in the VIP lounge upstairs. But word of advice, Penelope. Dallas likes to break his toys. He enjoys the struggle. If you want to survive him, you might need a friend who understands how his mind works. Someone who can help you push back." Landon slipped a sleek black business card into the pocket of her oversized sweater. "Keep it. You're going to need it." Penelope ignored him, pushing past his shoulder and marching up the grand glass staircase. She found the VIP lounge easily. It was guarded by two men who surprisingly stepped aside when they saw her coming. She pushed the heavy doors open. Dallas was sitting on a plush leather sofa, a glass of amber liquid in his hand, looking out over the flashing lights of the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. He looked incredibly isolated, like a king surveying a conquered, empty kingdom. He turned his head as she entered. A genuine, dangerous smile spread across his face. "You wore the necklace?" he asked, his voice smooth as silk. Penelope reached into her purse, pulled out the velvet box, and hurled it across the room. It struck Dallas square in the chest, bouncing onto the plush carpet. "I am not your toy. Penelope spat, her voice echoing in the quiet room. I am not some fragile little doll you can starve out and buy back with diamonds and appliances. Dallas set his glass down, the smile fading from his lips, replaced by a dark, intense focus. He stood up slowly, closing the distance between them. Despite her height and size, Dallas towered over her, his physical presence overwhelming. You are losing your suppliers, Dallas said softly, stopping mere inches from her. You are buying subpar ingredients. Your reviews will drop. Your restaurant will fail, Penelope. I am offering you an empire, a kitchen with an unlimited budget, total security. You are offering me a cage, Penelope countered, refusing to step back, looking up into his pitch-black eyes. You cut off my suppliers to force my hand. You think because I'm a fat woman who struggles to make rent, I should fall to my knees and worship the ground you walk on just because a billionaire looked my way. Dallas reached out his large, warm hand, surprisingly gentle, as he cupped her soft, flushed cheek. Penelope flinched, but she didn't pull away, paralyzed by the raw intensity rolling off him. I don't look at you and see weakness, Penelope. Dallas whispered, his thumb tracing her jawline. I see a queen who is settling for a peasant's life. I want to consume your fire, and I always get what I want. Not tonight, she whispered back, slapping his hand away. If you want my food, you make a reservation. If you want my heart, you'll find it's not for sale. Tonight, Mr. Watson, you can starve. She turned on her heel and stormed out of the room, her heart pounding furiously against her ribs. She had just declared war on the most dangerous man in the city, and as her hand brushed against the business card Landon Brooks had slipped into her pocket, she realized she was entirely surrounded by predators. Desperation is a bitter ingredient, and Penelope Hayes was forced to swallow it whole. By Wednesday, Salt and Soul was running on fumes. The walk-in refrigerator, usually a vibrant mosaic of fresh produce and hanging meats, looked like a barren wasteland. Her line cooks were exchanging nervous glances, and her reservations were starting to cancel as rumors of a menu downgrade hit the Chicago culinary forums. Dallas Watson was suffocating her dream with brutal, invisible efficiency. Standing in the frigid air of the empty cooler, Penelope reached into the pocket of her flour-stained coat and pulled out the sleek, matte black business card Landon Brooks had given her. It felt heavy, like a loaded weapon. Calling him was a gamble. He was a shark circling the same bloody waters as Dallas, but right now she was sinking, and a shark offered a fin to grab onto. She dialed the number. Landon answered on the first ring, his voice dripping with smooth, calculated charm. 2 hours later, Penelope found herself standing in the shadows of an unassuming brick warehouse down by the Fulton Market District. A sleek, black town car idled at the curb. Landon stepped out, adjusting the cuffs of a tailored navy suit, looking entirely out of place against the gritty industrial backdrop. Penelope. Landon greeted a predatory smile playing on his lips. I was beginning to worry you were actually going to let Dallas starve you out. I admire a woman with an appetite for survival. Cut the poetry, Landon. Penelope said, her arms crossed firmly over her large chest. She wore a heavy black peacoat that did little to hide her robust frame, but she stood tall, refusing to shrink under his assessing gaze. You said you understand how Dallas works. You implied you could push back. My suppliers are gone. If you want to help prove it. Landon chuckled, snapping his fingers at his driver. The warehouse doors rolled open with a heavy mechanical grind. Penelope's breath caught in her throat. Inside sat a logistical paradise. Pallets of rare ingredients were stacked floor to ceiling. Landon walked her down the aisles, pointing out the treasures. I have my own independent supply chains. Landon explained, his tone casual. Dallas controls the docks, but I control the overland freight. Here we have genuine A5 Wagyu, directly from the Miyazaki-gyu registry. Over there, fresh white truffles flown in from Alba through Urbano, completely off the books. And that entire pallet, exclusively Flannery beef reserves. If you want it, Penelope, it's yours. Enough to stock Salt and Soul for a year. Penelope stepped forward, tracing her fingers over a wooden crate of pristine heirloom tomatoes that smelled like summer rain. It was a chef's ultimate fantasy. "What is the price?" she asked, turning to face him. She wasn't stupid. Men in custom suits didn't hand out million-dollar supply lines out of the goodness of their hearts. Landon stepped into her personal space, his cologne sharp and suffocating. Dallas is weak right now. He's distracted by this little obsession he has with you. It's making him careless. I need to host a dinner this Saturday. A very private, very important gathering of the 5 families of the Midwest. I want you to cook for it at your restaurant. I want them to see that while Dallas couldn't buy you, I can command you. It will shift the optics of power. Penelope stared into his cold eyes. He didn't see a queen like Dallas claimed to. Landon saw a pawn. He saw a fat, desperate chef he could parade around to humiliate his boss. "I don't get involved in syndicate politics," she stated flatly. "You already are." Landon countered, his smile vanishing. "Dallas dragged you in the moment he sat at your table. Do this and you keep your restaurant. You get unlimited access to this warehouse. Refuse and you close your doors on Friday. The choice is yours, chef." For a long moment, Penelope weighed her pride against her livelihood. She looked at the Flannery reserves. She thought of Tommy, her sous chef, who needed this job to pay his mother's medical bills. She tightened her jaw. "Saturday night," Penelope said, her voice hard as steel. "But I retain total creative control over the menu, and you deliver the ingredients by midnight tonight." "A pleasure doing business with you, Penelope," Landon purred. As she turned to walk away, she caught the faint, dismissive mutter under his breath, directed at his driver. "Get the forklift. God knows she'll eat half the inventory before Saturday." Penelope froze. A hot, searing wave of humiliation washed over her, instantly replaced by a blinding, unadulterated rage. She didn't turn around. She didn't let him see the furious tears pricking her eyes. Instead, she walked out into the biting Chicago wind, a dangerous plan forming in her mind. Landon thought she was a desperate, heavy woman, willing to roll over for scraps. He was about to learn why they called her a force of nature. Saturday evening arrived with an oppressive tension that made the air inside Salt and Soul feel thick enough to cut with a carving knife. The restaurant was completely locked down. Landon's armed guards stood at the front and rear entrances. Inside, the dining room had been rearranged into one massive, intimidating banquet table draped in black velvet. Seated around the table were 12 of the most dangerous men in the Midwest. Landon sat at the head, radiating smug victory. In the kitchen, Penelope was a general commanding a war zone. She moved her large body with a graceful, practiced efficiency that defied her size. Sweat plastered her hair to her forehead. Her chef's coat was a canvas of sauces and spices, but her eyes burned with absolute focus. She was executing a 10-course tasting menu that would go down in culinary history. "Fire the Wagyu." "Au dernier," she roared, slapping a heavy cast-iron skillet onto the industrial burner. Flames erupted, illuminating her fierce expression. "Tommy, if those truffle shavings aren't translucent, I'm taking your thumbs." The first 5 courses went out flawlessly. The dining room was filled with the sounds of clinking silverware and low murmurs of profound approval. Landon was soaking in the praise, bragging loudly about how he had tamed the wild beast of the West Loop. Penelope was plating the 6th course, a delicate butter-poached lobster tail with a sweet corn foam, when the heavy kitchen doors swung open. It wasn't a waiter. It was Dallas Watson. The kitchen went dead silent. Tommy dropped his tongs. The line cooks shrank back against the stainless steel prep tables. Dallas was dressed in a pitch-black suit, looking like the Grim Reaper himself. He didn't look at the terrified staff. His dark, intense gaze locked immediately onto Penelope. "You look beautiful in your element," Dallas said, his voice easily cutting through the hiss of the stoves. Penelope didn't flinch. She picked up a pristine white towel, wiped the rim of a plate, and looked him dead in the eye. "You're trespassing in my kitchen, Mr. Watson. Health code violation." Dallas stepped closer, completely ignoring the massive butcher knife resting inches from her hand. "Landon is playing a dangerous game, Penelope. He believes this dinner makes him the new king. He thinks you are his crown jewel. I told you I don't share." "I am nobody's jewel," Penelope hissed, her chest heaving as she stepped up to the pass, bringing her face inches from his. "Your associate bought my survival because you tried to starve me out. And then he mocked me behind my back. You both think you can push me around because of my size, my bank account, or my gender. You're both wrong." Dallas's eyes darkened, a dangerous tempest brewing in his irises. "He mocked you." Before Penelope could answer, Landon shoved through the swinging doors, his face flushed with anger and wine. "Dallas, you weren't invited to this tasting?" Dallas didn't even turn his head to look at Landon. He kept his eyes locked on Penelope, a terrifying calm settling over his features. "Landon, you insulted the chef. Apologize." Landon scoffed, a nervous, arrogant sound. "Are you kidding me? You're losing your grip, Dom. The boss is out there. They're eating from my hand. And this oversized cook works for me now. She's just a fat girl who was desperate for a handout. It's over." The air in the kitchen snapped. Before Landon could blink, Penelope's hand shot out. She didn't grab a knife. She grabbed the piping hot, heavy cast-iron skillet, resting on the burner. With a terrifying roar of pure strength, she hurled it. It didn't hit Landon, but it smashed violently into the stainless steel wall, mere inches from his head, showering him in sparks and searing hot Wagyu fat. Landon shrieked, stumbling backward, slipping on the slick floor and crashing hard onto his back. "Get out of my kitchen!" Penelope roared, her voice echoing like thunder. She grabbed her 10-inch Wusthof chef's knife and pointed it squarely at Landon's chest as he scrambled on the floor. "You want to play king? Do it in the street. You think my weight makes me weak? I carry 260 pounds of pure armor every single day while I build an empire from scratch. You are a pathetic parasite in a cheap suit." Landon stared at her, terrified, then looked up at Dallas for help. Dallas was smiling. It was a genuine, breathtaking smile full of dark awe. "You heard the chef, Landon," Dallas whispered, finally turning to his treacherous underboss. "Leave, and tell the men in the dining room that I will be joining them for the final 4 courses. We have restructuring to discuss." Landon scrambled to his feet and fled through the doors, a broken, humiliated man. The kitchen was silent again, save for the hum of the ventilation hoods. Penelope stood there, breathing heavily, the knife still clutched in her hand. She slowly lowered it, turning her furious gaze back to Dallas. "If you think this means I'm yours, you are delusional," she warned, though her voice shook slightly from the adrenaline. Dallas stepped right up to the pass. He reached out gently, wrapping his large hand around her wrist, taking the knife, and setting it aside. He didn't look at her body with disgust, nor with the cheap, mocking lust of men like Landon. He looked at her with absolute, unwavering reverence. "I don't want to own you, Penelope," Dallas murmured, his voice a low rumble. "I realized that the moment you ruined my check, Caging a fire like yours would only extinguish it. I don't want a toy. I want an equal." Penelope narrowed her eyes. "I don't partner with the mob." "Then partner with a silent investor," Dallas countered smoothly, stepping around the pass and entering her space. He was so close she could feel the heat radiating from him. "I will reinstate your original suppliers. I will buy this entire building and sign the deed over to you. Salt and Soul remains yours. Total creative control. You cook what you want, when you want." "And what do you get out of this alleged charity?" she asked, her heart hammering against her ribs. Dallas reached up gently, brushing a stray lock of hair from her sweaty, flushed cheek. "Table 4, reserved for me every Tuesday night, and the privilege of knowing the most formidable woman in Chicago." Penelope looked into his eyes. She saw the danger, the violence of his world, but she also saw a man who had finally recognized her true worth, refusing to diminish her size or her spirit. She was a chef who thrived on heat, and Dallas Watson was a walking inferno. "I don't do free meals, Watson," Penelope whispered, her lips curling into a triumphant smirk. "I wouldn't dream of it, chef," Dallas replied, his gaze dropping to her lips. "Now is the lobster getting cold?" Penelope Hayes proved that true power isn't about fitting into a mold. It's about breaking the mold over the head of anyone who dares to underestimate you. She kept her empire, her curves, and her fierce independence serving up the ultimate revenge on a silver platter. If you loved this intense Mafia romance drama, hit that like button, share Penelope's fierce journey with your friends, and subscribe for more thrilling, real-life inspired stories